We've used this slide that I've used in the background here to illustrate the the dynamics of our market in Southern Africa versus our parent company, which is Japan. And really this long and short of it, South Africa and all the countries around it, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, etc. It's all our territory, and that area space is at 130 million people at last rough count. Japan has a similar amount of people. The country of Japan actually fits into that area 14 times. So although we've got the same amount of people, the dynamics of markets, logistically, globally, and from a dynamic profile of people perceived very, very differently. But it's just an interesting dynamic that I use with the trading partners at the time, what our territory looks like relative to theirs, and put a bit of perspective. It's a bit of fun, but it also helps kick off the dynamic. So if we go into the economy of South Africa, we had a lot of information at the beginning of the year. I try to sum up all the variables and the dynamics we've had in this country for quite some time, and we could probably put together hundreds of slides. I stole this slide, I can't remember, from some article somewhere, where it just says, with the Eskom challenges, infrastructural challenges, corruption, union challenges we have, etc., it's quite an obstacle course to negotiate over time in our industry, but at the same time life has to go on and we have to manage our way through it, and if business has got to be successful, you've got to be able to handle that environment. So a bit of tongue-in-cheek way of looking at the economy, but going forward, they don't change. If I look a year ago, 6 months ago now, and if we look in a year at time, those things are all going to be the same, and varying degrees of where we are. So we discussed in the last few days the potential of closing the budget deficit and how we're going to fund that going forward. We've had quite an entertaining time where reality TV in Cape Town in Parliament seems to be quite an exciting place to be, and we've kept us not only amused at times, I guess, but also the dynamic that's at hand here at Powers at Play. In Johannesburg and many parts of the country, candlelit dinners are becoming quite a common occurrence. Yeah, we're adapting, and I think what people don't realise outside of South Africa, we're all learning this. Power generally around the world, whether in a first world country or in other parts of Africa, load shedding, power outages is a norm in life, and we're only just getting used to that. So toll fees, we suffer that mostly up on the reef at the moment, but it's another cost driver, and costs are obviously becoming more and more of a challenge. We've been quite fortunate on the fuel side, that we've had a reduction in fuel that's offset some of these costs, but that'll creep back in again. And then the other factors that keep us entertained in the media and distracted a little bit and create some more negative business sentiment are the parastatals, the SAAs, the SABCs, the post office we mentioned earlier, and the list actually does go on a little bit, which is a little bit sad, but the fact of the matter, all those things impact on our business and the way we manage it, and those of us that rely heavily on imported goods to make products, the exchange rates are quite fundamental in that business. So it's really interesting and keeps us busy, and as we've said, this is really not an armchair occupation, but I think it all comes down to the end of the day, we're trying to create employment in a country that's hugely under pressure on the unemployment stats, and none of this is helping. So it's a really tough wheel to get around, to contribute products, goods, services in an environment, but at the same time you're trying to counteract a hell of a lot of negatives that are facing us. So costs are the challenge, and part of our strategy is, as a business, to try and help customers and supply chain and partners that we're in business with counter those cost pressures if we're going to be successful and carry on sustainability in this business. So just hit exit. Moving on, how does that impact where we've been over the last 6 months? We've really ridden the wave, if I can put it that. In the NAAMSA stats that came out in June, for the first time we've seen in the last 3 months quite a rapid decline in the market in the automobile industry, never mind just the cars. Trucks have started to show a slowdown as well, which I think has caught a lot of analysts by surprise. We would have thought the impact of all these economic pressures are going to push us into next year before we really start seeing economic impacts, and unfortunately it's come a lot quicker, and it's creating a little bit of consternation and concern that if it's done that quickly, where are we going to get to? So got to deal with that going forward for the balance of the year and into the next 2 years, I guess, if you're going to plan businesses, because in our business it's a long-term game. We've got quite long supply chains, 5 to 6 month pipelines. You can't just turn them on and off very quickly. And at the same time, the impacts of the exchange rate create some quite challenging dynamics in the business. So in the truck industry itself, you find that the extra heavy market year to date has come down just over 7.3%. The mediums have also come down a little bit, also in the range of 7%. Funny enough, in the light heavies, where the typical 8-ton distribution truck features, that's actually grown 5.5%. And I think that's got a lot to do with the industry at 30,000 units. It's kind of been around the 30,000 units over the last 3 years. It's been a fairly okay place to be in most of the markets, a replacement market. But you're seeing a little bit of consolidations, buy down and buy up into productivity and efficiency of replacement solutions, and that's, I think, why you're getting that trend creeping in. When tough times come, purchasing dynamics do change in the short term for that perspective. So from our particular point, we're well positioned on products in those two segments of the market. It's been good for us. And we, for the first 6 months of this year, continue to grow quite nicely. We've increased share. Our volume has been up 20% for the first 6 months, even though the market has reduced 5%. So in real terms, that's quite significant in the circumstances. So we're quite happy with the space we're in from what we're doing. We need to do probably a lot more of what we're doing. So, you know, again, on the chassis over cab truck application, we continue to hold some dominance in the marketplace from that perspective, and our shares continue to grow. So overall, we've had 3 really good years of getting to quite good dominance and leadership in the market in various segments and spaces, and our sales strategies are catered towards providing solutions to customers in tough times. So we will carry on with that. So we showed some slides. I think last year we might have showed you a slide where we over our existence over the last 8 years as a specialized truck company, continue to make progress to get to where we are, and we plan to be there. We're in the 4,000 units plus a year supply to the market, and we intend to stay in that space and grow further from there. Last year when you were with us, we said we like to support the Eastern Cape, where our factory is, and the economy down there doesn't always get too many breaks. So we continue to push some initiatives down there and have a bit of fun as well as a bit of business. So we'll continue supporting some of the cycling events to give some promotion down P again this year, just from that perspective. But really, that being as history, what we're really looking at at this juncture, as I said, we've been in South Africa as a automotive truck business specializing in that for the last 8 years, and our new strategy takes us into a new sphere. We always positioned ourselves as an after-sales based company that looks after the operation of the truck in the field once the customer's got it as a primary focus of our business, and the truck sales result from that strategy, not sales first and the others last. So the next 5 years is all about moving on from where we are. As I say, we're in year 8 now of the second 5-year strategy. The first 5 years were the formative years: dealers, infrastructures, products, training. Took long hard years. Then we just sort of made it within the time frame. The next 5 were our, let's call it, mature years, where we started to reap the benefits of that. And we're in year 8 of that 10. So we've actually achieved most of those objectives. And I think we don't need to wait. We're going to move forward with the next phase of our development. And the business objectives really focus and function around being different as a brand. And being different, you need to move your mind on a continuous basis if you want to be different. But at the same time, you need to be discerning and decisive in your approach in rolling out your strategies. And I think we've achieved that in many instances, and we're quite comfortable in that methodology, and we're going to carry on with that. So we might be taking a little bit of an off-the-wall approach going forward, but I think it's logical, practical and commonsensical in our business. So Isuzu Trucks into the future in Southern Africa really is going to move towards an enterprise-based view on our business, not just an OEM that traditionally focuses all its product development, engineering, production, etc., just to the factory gate. And at the factory gate, the rest of the market picks up and the dealers pick up from there. Our enterprise-based business is going to go right down, way beyond the factory gate. So together with our dealers and ourselves, that's the philosophy we're going to move into. And what does that mean in the short term? Well, as of this month and next month, we're acquiring some businesses down the supply chain. And the first one is 2 companies in Port Elizabeth, which are relatively close to our factory, and the one is a truck body builder, and the other one is a truck, let's call it chassis customization company, where you shorten wheelbases, put specialized equipment on, etc., etc. So we've acquired those 2 businesses 100% to add to this enterprise down the line, and we'll be looking how to leverage this in our business enterprise going forward. So PE as a location of our truck factory is not necessarily the best location in the country when the market is 1,000 kilometers away and other markets are 700 or 800 kilometers away. At the same time, there's benefits to that, is we can stage a lot from that point before it gets to market and add efficiency to that. So it's really not just about buying a bodybuilding company or a customization company. It's about integrating those services into an incomplete product as a chassis cab that gives it a complete product, that gives us the ability to provide customers complete solutions in a much quicker, organized, quality and precise manner, and leverage a lot more collaborations, partnerships, and other opportunities along the way. And yeah, those businesses, as I say, it's not about buying the business, it's about bringing them into the enterprise approach. So not only does that location give us opportunity in the market, even though it's removed from the current mass market point, it will give us some other opportunities further afield. And being in a port, we would look to those territories in sub-Saharan Africa we're also getting involved in. How do we offer those solutions into those territories? So yeah, traditionally we build a lot of vehicles with this particular industry in PE for governmental contracts, turnkeys, big customers, etc. And we'll just expand that further and further into the retail market.
And which ports are you planning to use, Cook or PE Harbour?
Whichever one is going to ship to the correct destination. Obviously those two harbours are profiled very differently for goods and where they go. So that's the benefit. You know, hopefully we'll have access to a lot further afield. It all comes back to critical mass in the end of the day. So
it's a good name for an event.
Yeah. So we will see as it goes. Yeah. But I think we're positioning ourselves to be quite flexible and follow the need and the market. So further, a little bit further than just the bodybuilding that we've showed, and some of the pictures which are sometimes more routine. We've got COO here today, who up until this month has been the truck plant manager for our assemblies over the last 4 years, and we've done quite significant changes, efficiencies, developments in that plant. So it makes quite common sense to us, again and logically, that we're going to put him as the leader of this new business in Port Elizabeth. And yeah, it should bring a lot more sustainability to an Eastern Cape business, because we can create some more economies of scale there. And with COO's history and experience, we look forward to be able to do some good things down there. So
are we getting close to being able to build a truck from start to finish in PE?
Yeah, we've been doing it for a while. And
it was more on the assembly side before.
No, let's stick to the knitting. Assembly is assembly. Yeah. Customization is customization, and completing the good of specific phases. But once the vehicle leaves PE, we've been able to coordinate and manage. And we found over the last 2 years, when we've done this for a certain amount of customers, where we've been able to do quite large volumes in very short space of times through production processes in that side of the business, being the body side, not just on our assembly side, the speed to market is less than half the time, which has surprised and amazed certain people that you can do that amount. But it all comes down to planning, coordinating, and from our perspective, we can put resources in there, like COO. We can pull resources, which we will, from Isuzu, to add quality, value, efficiencies in the business. And critically, the business needs funding, proper procurement and sourcing. So all those things added together comes out with quite a nice value add picture that we can give to the customers. So this has been driven by customer demand and customer need. So we're just, as I say, as an enterprise, following the need.
So you're not bringing those businesses under the Isuzu name, you're going to keep their
No,
names?
They will, because they do have benefit to the open market, and we don't want to necessarily take that away, but natural forces will take care of that, I'm sure. But as I say, in buying a business is not the business. Yeah. We've been discussing with various other bodybuilding businesses to collaborate with it, because that business doesn't necessarily provide all the products that we need to the market. So there's opportunity for those, and I've been quite pleased with the response I've had, where they see the bigger picture and actually want to collaborate and participate, because there's benefit in it for them at the end of the day. So, as I said, believe it's a very logical and commonsensical business. So if we stray too far past that, then it's probably not a great strategy to be following. And at the end of the day, the customers actually are the ones that give you the correct feedback and response to it. So we look forward to it, and at the same time, that's not where we're stopping. Over the next couple of months, we'll share with you as we go. We've got some other JVs to be busy with, and maybe a bit premature to give you the exact details, but they're not necessarily bad. Joint ventures, collaborations, partnerships starts to make this ball roll into the enterprise strategy we're talking about. So the strategic intent at the end of the day, as I said, is leverage the alliances and the volumes and the benefits we've already created in the brand and with suppliers. Retain business and sustainability in the Eastern Cape. Eastern Cape's been a bit of a tough environment for business for many years, with automotive business, and particularly the swings in the economic cycles through the country. Eastern Cape, as one of the areas, not just the only one, that does suffer from inconsistency and lack of economies of scale. So to grow employment down there and to hold skills is not so easy. But hopefully with the critical mass we can create, we can give sustainability, consistency, job security, and retain those skills in the bigger scheme of things. And as I say, at the same time, we're looking for the opportunities. Isuzu Trucks, believe it or not, assemble close on 5,000 trucks a year in Kenya. They do close to 10,000 in Egypt. So 25,000 new trucks were sold. Isuzu trucks were sold on the continent of Africa last year. And the second half of this year is about just having a look at where the bigger markets are going to be, that we can pull the economies of scale in and leverage the values in other territories as well. So exciting times and very different times. And within Isuzu Trucks itself, we are making some managerial and responsibility changes to address the way we work, because naturally the need at an OEM level and what we've normally had with people, we've got to reprofile, retrain, refocus the way we look at business commercially, not just product-wise, to address all that. So exciting times, interesting times, hopefully very beneficial times to our dealers, our suppliers, our alliance partners, ourselves, and through into next year we'll see how this plays out and what we can share at that point in time from here to there. Yeah. And that's my bit for the day. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for your time,
Okay.
sir.
Now you can have your questions.
Questions. We're looking at growth into Africa. How many units ideally would you like to be doing in 2 years' time?
Strangely enough, the territory I showed, where it's, let's call it the SADC countries, and Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique share a lot of, they get all their fuel from us, and a lot of our customers are running into those routes and those territories quite significantly now, and it's grown quite a lot over the last 2 years. So our volume into those territories, believe it or not, this year versus the average of the last 3 have quadrupled. So, and a lot of that is part of the solution we've offered here. They are rolling out in Zambia, in Mozambique, through local companies. So the market growth has been pushed into solutions they're offering in those territories. So that's been an interesting. Once you go beyond that, our legislation of the Euro standards we run that are quite tied to the fuels in those areas, Once you go a little bit beyond that, then the Kenyan product goes in there, which is generally Euro 0, Euro 1, fit for purpose for those territories as they are in their development stage at the moment. So the sub-Saharan territory together with ours is not a one-size-fits-all. You actually have to, and then you also draw the line. You've got left-hand drive on the west and right-hand drive on the east, but similar technology. So you've got that dynamic. So at the beginning of the year, we set up a company that's also based in Johannesburg called Isuzu Motors Sub-Saharan Africa. And we're busy staffing that and developing the strategy for sub-Saharan territory, which focuses on what's required. But there are a lot of benefits, because there are big corporates of ours that run in those territories and say, but I want the same 4-tonner or 8-tonner solution in those territories. And that's where the bodies come in. The chassis might vary from a technology, but the solution is the same. And again, that's driven by needs. The West took a bit of a hit this year because of the oil, so that's kind of on pause. The Kenyan side of the business is racing. It's phenomenal. They're probably going to outsell us this year, believe it or not. So again, it's just where the economies are.
Nigeria and Angola must be also growth areas.
They were up until the beginning of the year.
Yeah, the oil.
You know, so that's, I won't say it's crashed and burnt, but it's definitely crashed, and there's no immediate short-term signs of that. So this time last year, lots of opportunism and excitement and opportunity more than opportunism, and we appointed dealers there, and we just started to go, and bang, in January, well, earlier this year, you got the impact of the oil, which has put the brakes on. Then you've got Boko Haram, and you've got the election that's just happened. So in hindsight, we're very pleased that we actually kept, let's call it the regional office in Joburg, because if it had people posted in those territories, they're all in the wrong area now. You know, so to fly into a territory east or west out of Johannesburg 3, 4, 5 hours is actually, in this day and age, quite easy to support those territories. And over time, they'll find, we'll be able to put the people itself domicile in those territories. But for now, you know, it's a big territory with very unique dynamics, and Kenya is really the one that's showing the way currently. So we work together, but it's obviously got very different plans. So when we're talking about our alliance partners, JVs, the simple business principle applies to those areas, and they can leverage off that as and when, and it's all scalable even when it happens. So.
And what do you put the success of the light commercial market down to?
I think if you look at our particular sales successes, we're on N series. We're averaging on year to date this year, averaging around 70% of the products we sell all have AMT, which is the no clutch, simple to drive, easy to drive, very difficult to mess up the truck, miss a gear, focus on the road. Things like damages get and maintenance get reduced dramatically, because it's just taking away a lot of the driver variables that create problems. On the F series, we're running at about 50%. So some of the customers actually use that technology in a strange way. They view it as their risk manager. It takes away their risks, and that's helped us tremendously. I think we've got to the phases where we've reached the water level of where the demand is, because it's a horse for a course. The more sophisticated customers running long distance don't need the technology. They still can run conventionally, and we've got to a point we understand where we are with it. But that's been a tremendously good. We'd love to use that technology maybe further north, but you need to be at a certain Euro standard before you can put that technology in. Today it's still a very mechanical type vehicle up north, and most of the market, we've done some numbers in the same territory in Africa. Although we sold 25,000 new trucks, Isuzu trucks, there were close on 300,000 used trucks sold into that same market. So where does Africa go? How does it progress from used to new sometime in the future, maybe very distant future? But as the world goes with technology, the supply of used, no technology trucks starts diminishing, and you've got to bridge the gap. So our strategy we have is to bridge that gap, and we're working quite hard at making sure we progress into the market through that, bridging that gap.
And you say fuel's a big problem in Africa. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel for that, or are we just going to accept that?
No, it is changing. World, again, economies of scale. It becomes uneconomical to produce old generation technology, old generation fuels. So you already see those countries. Look at Nigeria. It's one of the biggest oil producing countries that refines nothing, and all the refined fuels are imported. The same goes for West Africa. It's all imported fuels. So as we go further, the imported fuels are getting more and more to be able to run Euro 2 and 3. So we're already starting to sell our products into more and more African territories that are unique products, 4x4s, things that are not regular production runs up in Kenya. We're starting to supplement with the products down here, and in those areas they're actually running okay because they've got 500 ppm fuels, not 5,000 ppm fuels anymore, and they're starting to improve on an ongoing basis. So it's part of that evolution into those territories. So Africa will change. We just don't know how soon from that perspective. And yeah, if we think we've got dynamics in our economy, you've got to go into those environments with your eyes wide open. And the success in Africa is collaboration. You can't do it on your own. You've got to do it with alliances and partners and things like that. And you've got to have a good strategy. And then we go into some interesting other environments where we don't have, let's call it the production run crew cab. We do provide crew cabs now on certain of the 20 cubic meter waste vehicles. Instead of the manual crew cab behind the bin itself, but between the cab, we actually put the cab on and take the bin away and put that in. Let's just try and think. It's become such commonplace. I can't remember what's unique anymore. But I think as you find historically we had to buy specialized vehicles from US based or European sourced products for those, they've become more and more inhibitive from a cost perspective, and because they're unique, it's very difficult to maintain them, service them, etc. So we'll take the basic South African engine, transmission, etc., and ensure we customize them locally to give them a local flavor to support, maintain, but at the same time the functionality is the same. And that is starting to become a nice growth path for us.
Speaking of growth, the whole industry, the motor industry, is now rated as the biggest industry in South Africa. What do you put? It has its fair share of ups and downs, but what do you put that general success down to?
Yeah, over time, and we've probably had it written in the newspapers and media many times. The location of South Africa to the rest of the world, logistically, is quite immense, and those logistical costs of getting things here and getting things away from here is quite a big inhibitor. So it's driven the need, particularly in our business, to be able to do a lot for ourselves and to make it work. And I think we, as an industry across the board, not just automotive, in many fields, still quite an industrious, ingenious country with a lot of flair and skills and entrepreneurs. So nothing's impossible from that perspective. And I think a lot of the enterprise approach we're taking is looking at the historical mindsets and historical opportunities that people have in providing solutions. And time, because of that logistical, it takes our lead times for automotive industry to buy material is generally 5 to 6 months before we can put it in the market. We live in an instantaneous society with email, SMSs, and all. Customers want things tomorrow, or next month. Says, why can't you give it to me that quickly? So it's driven by a need, and we have to, if we want to be successful, we have to adapt to that need. I think that's got a lot to do with your question.
Absolutely, and I saw your plant very efficient. What have been the keys to sort of driving that process to streamline?
Fresh pair of eyes, new ideas, the Kaizen philosophy. It might be a bit of a cliche, but it works. Things like layout, process, simple things in the factory. When we've increased our factory run rate from 13 units a day to averaging 20 units a day. Not that it's a great advert for employment, but we've done it with the same labour force, and the productivity efficiencies, all that comes through in that, and we can probably leverage it more. But things like on a production line, the amount of walkabout. It's amazing how much you can cut down by the amount of time people walk from there to there to there. You put everything at hand close enough to do the job without having to things we've done that might make sense to certain industrial and kitting, and it's just focused on the unit of how you do it efficiently, your layouts of material, your material to production sideline, your run rates, your sub-assemblies, and your limiting inefficiency. I call it walkabout, and it's amazing what you can achieve. And together with SIPO and Mr. Arai from Isuzu in Japan, those are the fresh eyes. Just having a look. I walked into our plant, I think 4 years ago, stood at one corner, looked across, couldn't see in the other corner, just clutter. Now you walk in there, you don't see anything other than people doing what they should be doing. It looks organized, it runs organized, and it's not rocket science. It's simple.
Basics.
You've heard me say it many times. Practicality, common sense, logic, and just do it right. And of course, at the same time, you just achieve huge quality benefits out of that. Nothing's done incorrectly, the wrong way around, missing, and things like that. Because to assemble a truck, it might seem like a simple thing to do, but the skills required on that production line are quite a lot more than a general car assembly line, because a guy's doing 3 or 4 functions. On a truck line, he's doing 30 or 40 functions. He's got to remember on different products. So it takes a little bit of a lot more common sense and aptitude than normal.
And do you think our logistical placement would hold us back from greater export numbers?
Export numbers on the truck industry is a little bit difficult because of the legislation we have here. The car market is focusing on high-level technology for the rest of the world markets. The rest of the world markets are taken care of on truck commercial vehicles. So we've got Africa. At the same time, the moment you try and get into an export program, those countries change their rules from now we have to, not to name any of them, but in a matter of 6 months, where we could have been exporting to a territory, they say, no, we must assemble locally. So those dynamics and the level of technology, as I said, that we are producing here doesn't quite lend itself to a lot of territory. So from a truck program locally, to get economies of scale, we don't have a 300,000 unit market to do what the car guys can do. We've got 30,000 with probably more brands of trucks in this country than in any other country in the world that participates in one market. So all the dilution that comes into it makes it very, very difficult to localize or do the rest of it. So trucks are economy, and trucks are fundamentally in the economy. They deliver everything we've got around us here. And if we don't keep them competitive, productive, Africa is moved in buses and on trucks. So we've got to make, whether it's legislation, whether it's productivity, we've got to make the ability to access those as economically as possible for people to generate an economy or business out of them as you can. So
it'd be nice to have a bit of political slipstreaming in that process as well.
Yeah, look, we've got a lot of, as I say, we've got a lot of obstacles, not only economic obstacles of business challenges, but we've got a lot of obstacles on, the biggest topic at the moment is accidents. Trucks get blamed for a lot of things. Quite honestly, some of the way people act on the roads in their cars and things don't exactly make it easier for those guys behind the wheel of a truck to navigate around some of those obstacles, and then they get blamed for. But again, we've got a lot of good legislation that should be applied for us to achieve the results of safety, etc., etc. And we're trying to put more regulations in place to overcome what we're not achieving by applying the rules that we have in the first place. That's just making more and more challenges. We've got govern trucks' speeds. Well, the speed limit is already set. Just police it correctly. Now you want to govern them to the same speed limit that already exists in legislation. You now want to restrict trucks at certain times of the day because you want to make it safer. Well, that's not really the problem. It's how people act on the roads that should be policed.
And the roadworthiness of old trucks.
Yeah, and there's legislation that rules that in the first place.
But it's not really imposed.
But it's not imposed and implied. So, let's sort out the root cause. Let's not try and address, the wrong side of the spectrum.
You can't get a kickback if we don't have to change all the speed signs.
Yeah. So it's very frustrating from that point of view. From our perspective, if you look at the products we're providing to the market, as I say, more than 50%, we're giving the drivers the best opportunity to concentrate on what they're doing, to make it easier in their environment, which is their actual office. Now we need to add more cost, more technology to now manage things that should be managed at source where they belong to be managed.
And you hit on a very good point. In Nevada, they're legalizing, what's in the process of legalizing self-drive trucks. We're probably a way away from that, but do you ever see that 10 to 20 years time being a reality? Yeah.
Look, in first world countries, if you drive a vehicle on a road in Germany or anywhere in Europe, your infrastructure lends itself for that. Here we haven't got the infrastructure that lends itself for that. The infrastructure is getting more complicated with the quality of the road and the variables that the guys have to deal with. So I don't think the technology is being designed for third world or second world or inappropriate infrastructure. It's designed for almost first world perfect infrastructure. So if we're going to adapt the designs for that, I don't think we can afford the technology at the end of the day to actually make it productive in this marketplace to achieve that. So there's a, we're sitting with the industry, we've got to balance all these things. Cost, we spoke about earlier, and it's just driving up cost, and the consumer pays the cost. The consumer then doesn't spend its money. It impacts on the economy. The economy doesn't generate revenue. The government doesn't collect money. It's simple economics. We are driving too many things that are in isolation and not looking at the bigger picture, what drives the economy in a bigger picture other than in isolation. So communication, collaboration, talking between private sector and the public sector, governmental institutions talking to each other, all drives getting the solution to be as practical, as simple and efficient as possible.
Amen to that.
Yeah, well, easy to say. Take us a few years to get that.
In a very tight market, how does Isuzu differentiate itself from the competition?
I think our main drivers are we believe the right products that makes the ability to provide cost-effective solutions to people's businesses that really impact on their bottom line. Businesses are under enough pressure to stay sustainable and viable. So unless you make a substantial impact on that bottom line, as a business partner, not just a supplier of hardware, but as a business partner, that's what makes business tick. And I think with our current crop of customers, and as we get more and more, we see ourselves as a team player with a customer, not as a competitor, but as a team. Customer, ourselves, our dealer, or a joint team to add that value.
So we had some mid-year predictions there. End-of-year predictions sales-wise?
It's a tough one. Crystal ball gazing. But I think if we take where we are now, the market has come down 5%, as I said. That in essence would suggest, if it carries on this trend, we finished last year around roughly 31,000-ish market. At 5%, we'd be on the 30,000, just under actually. But I think we might see the deterioration a little bit more than the 5%. So if the two segments that are already running at 7, negative 7, and the segment that's running at 5+, if that levels out a bit, 29,000 is probably the number. It's below the 30,000, which I've always said the market's okay at 30+. The 29 seems the more than likely trend, and I really hope it doesn't get worse than that, because that's not going to be good.
And the economy needs a bit of a kickstart. Any ideas where that's going to come from?
No idea. No idea. I think let's say sometimes no news is good news at the current environment. So if no news is good news, the factors of Greece impacting, on the emerging markets, the currencies, and it just suggests there's too much risk on the downside of things. And I'm generally not a pessimist, I'm an optimist. But you've got to be a bit realistic. So I think we're looking at this next 6 months, and particularly the next 2 years, very realistically around where do you peg your business. I think fundamentally we've got to make sure we don't really want to lose jobs in our environment. So how we best fit our expectations of the production line, our run rates, our general business, just to make sure whatever that level is, hopefully it's not too far beyond what I said, allows us to protect our business, sustainability, without having to expose people to job losses. And I think that's probably the most realistic, but responsible way of trying to plan our business.
And planning for everybody to be at work for the whole year, no strikes, how's the best way to keep everybody on the floor?
It's always a challenge. Look, this year essentially is still part of the current 3-year bargaining arrangement. So unless there's something coming out of left field that's going to create that, the rest of this year should be okay. I think what industry generally suffers a lot from is the absenteeism that hurts the business, and that's still something this country's got to crack if it's going to be able to keep itself productive.
I suppose if you're running a lean business and you have one hole in the gap,
yeah, it's a complete contradiction. You know, you come with a multinational company in this world that wants to run lean, competitive businesses, and you are exposed to a factor that's not commonplace in other territories and don't have to deal with it, it automatically leads to inefficiency, and those are unfortunately the challenges.
Full mechanization, would that ever be an option?
I don't think on truck. You know, for what we're doing here is in catering for what the government wanted some time back to give the most productive solution on a product to the industry. You need to assemble it here. You know, then you save on the large logistical shipping costs. So there is a benefit. I think the industry does very well in making sure it provides the value add here to make it. Further than that, it's very difficult to get any. You know, if I had to go and place an order with a supplier for 4,000 somethings, you know, it's not a viable business option for him in this country. Even if you gross all the other manufacturers together with the same somethings, it's still only going to be 20 or 30,000 of them. Whereas in the bigger scheme of manufacturing around the world, you know, they would be talking for hundreds, thousands of something, or 4 million of somethings, which makes sense. So from the truck industry perspective, I think we've got, as an industry in general, as close as you can to the best solution for this part of the world, between local value add, labour, production, etc., at a factory point of view. You know, if you're building 30,000 trucks in the industry every year, and you take on average, a body is on average going to be equivalent to the value of the chassis, the real opportunity is downstream, and that's where we obviously are going, because that's where you can sustain jobs, build credibility, leverage more of the local into that, and make sure that it works for everyone.